Wanted to do a quick video this morning on a subject that came up about whether slavery and the economy and credit and owing money, in particular credit, is slavery. So I wanted to address that. And I suppose this is interesting because I did a video 6 months ago on epistemology and understanding how we know what we know and whether the path that we use, the tools we use in understanding what we know is reliable. Are we using a reliable path to understanding? So this is interesting to conflate slavery and credit together is a good example of having a bad path to truth. But anyway, let's get stuck into it. So slavery is owning another person as property, as chattel. It's you own them as your own property. They don't have the same rights as normal humans. And it was abolished in the West hundreds of years ago. We don't have slavery in the West. As I said, it's been abolished. The definition of slavery is owning another human being as property, as your own property, to do with what you please, whether it's work or whatever you want them to do. They're your property. They're owned against their will. So that's the definition of slavery. Credit is a willing contract between you and an institution like a bank. You make the decision to go and borrow money because you want something nice like a car. You do owe interest, but that's part of the luxury of having all that money up front, is that you pay interest on it. Even then, even if you don't pay that money back that you willingly borrowed, if you can't pay it back, you can claim bankruptcy. So even then, you're not tied down by this money that you owe back. Even though the money you borrowed is not slavery, you're not even tied down by the money you borrowed in the first place. If you really wanted to, you could claim bankruptcy. Let's expand it to the economy, to the fiat currency. So a fiat currency, we borrow money and we have to pay more back than what we borrowed. So potentially you could look at that as a pyramid scheme. You could look at it as very flawed. But that's not the same thing as slavery. They're two different things. We're talking about a fiat currency. We're talking about a pyramid scheme. A pyramid scheme and a fiat currency is not the same as slavery. The people in charge of handing out the money aren't our owners. They are in charge of handing out the money, and we owe it back to them. We owe the money back to them. But they're not our owners. They don't own us as property. They can't do with us what we please. We don't have less rights than regular humans. We are regular humans. So to conflate the two together is pretty flawed. I think it's an emotional response. So some people feel enslaved or feel like they have hopelessness in their life. And so they do things like conflate these things together and say that, the whole world is slavery. I feel like a slave, so, why don't we all be slaves? The whole world's a slave. It's that kind of hopelessness that leads to these types of conclusions. So I just wanted to bring that up because it was addressed this morning. I wanted to make the distinction between actual slaves and slavery and a fiat currency and credit and economics and borrowing and owing money. They're two completely different things. And they need to be kept apart. Thank you. That's all.